Okay then, take two. Welcome, good day, Sunday the 27th of June. I am just going to share this on a few platforms if you bear with me. Okay, yeah, and I'm going to see if I can share Indi as well. Give me some moments and let me share. Will be. Thank you for joining. Hope you are well. All is good. We'll have a chat afterwards. A little bit of an update for you in regards to the title of the video there. Can't type. I'm not feeling very strong today. Yeah, that's one done. Right there. I have two accounts, and I guess I just logged in with Indi Glow and it failed miserably. A wee bit, to say the least. Been some time since we've used this, so notice we've been using the other media platform. So into splspro.com, Facebook and Telegram, and we shall begin, and I will screen share. We shall begin. Thank you for your patience. Data opt-out GP and doctors, Data Protection Act 98 and 18 and G.D.P.R 2018. You read the description, you've got all the links there. Required to find us if you haven't already found us. Private public domains that we frequent. Initially I'm going to endeavour to screen share to bring to you what's going on. Window capture and there. Let me get onto the channel, make sure that all is as it should be. Okay, welcome. Wash. Lindsay, Mr. Dav, Claire. And that one, this one, and get my screen set up. Not just screen share. With you. All right. Working. Don't know what's happened. I've had an update, as you can tell, and I might not be able to screen share with you. In which case, I'll go away and reconfigure, and I'll get back to you. For some reason, maybe it's minimized. Try that. Let me try that for you. Just bear with me. Catch up. There we go. I believe that's done it. Patience is indeed a virtue. Yes, yes, yes. Hallelujah. All right. The governor's back in control. Honestly, you just saw the layout then of all those buttons and things. It's not like the other applications that you use to go live. It's my preferred technology other than the other ones that are available for audio and streaming, bitrate, refresh, and I don't like to advertise other platforms, even though we use them from time to time. I want to be independent and private. So let's see who's in the house. So Lindsay, Dav, Claire, Kathy, Tony, Barnster, Gansders, what? Thank you for joining. So hopefully on the screen you're going to see a redacted, hello money spider, not a redacted money spider, the tiniest thing. Oh, be gone. We're going to go through this, and I've got some other documents to share you as well with regards to what I've done, and I'm not giving any legal advice, I'm not giving you any advice, I'm just sharing my activities. There's a document drafted up by brother Kevin Maximus, the living legend himself. We shared this into Facebook, Telegram, and I believe within the courses section of splspro, courses, workshops, guides section, and it's in the files as well for you to download from the literature library and the resource vault. Just do an audio check. Seems to be good. Well done. Okay, a little introduction for you though. Why are we doing this? Well, the history of the world as we know it is mostly based on violence. There is no honour in this realm up until this point. You know, recently, what, the 1500s onwards, we seem to have become rather civilised, or pretending to be civilised, with our laws, codified laws, secular laws, legislative laws, Templar laws, canon laws, maritime and admiralty laws. You know, we are following universal laws. I come to you today as a hermeticist and a fan and a promoter of the hermetic principles, universal principles. What law do I follow? Not so much Christianity, and we use Christianity, the Abrahamic faiths, and I've had a lot of emails reference how we govern, how we manage, what we use as our parameters, our ethical and moral guidelines, or morality guidelines, and each to their own, as you've seen by my recent, and I hope you have, recent interviews and presentations with Rice TV on Beth Martins, and the video update on Indi Glow with 5,000 scribe celebration giveaway. We should know where we are and what we do, and we navigate the legal system, legal being the undoing of God's law. We navigate that legal system with lawful ways out, but the legal system is based on the Holy Bible and the scriptures there, and we recognise the pathways within that. And you'll notice that we also use a multifaceted area of law, legislation, Abrahamic, and trust, various areas of trust. So the world is based on violence, mostly up until very recently, and I'd argue that there is soft war going ahead at the moment. Man no longer seems to care for their unalienable rights. They care more about their standard of life. The modern world in 2021 seems to have outgrown notions like rights. The ever-present threat remains to the crowns, whilst ever free will exists. For centuries, the establishments and institutions have tried to control our free will with religion, with politics, recently with consumerism, to eliminate our dissent and our resistance. Now the time has come where the crowns seemingly are giving science a try. Alright, so we've got quite a bit to bring you in the form of an update. I've left my tooth out on purpose. You've seen the real me today. Watch out for pirates. I am not one, but yes, old pirates, yes, they rob I, in the words of Bob there. So I'm going to go through a simple process as per the title, and then I'm going to go on to extra supplementary news and some answers to questions via emails I've recently had, and I hope you enjoy the presentation of what I've got for you today. So you should see on the left hand side, which I'll highlight because it will do both the bit that's highlighted here, group practice, and the practice manager. And the left hand side is where the addressee is. The right hand side is where we I originate and my care of address as the data controller for my person. Right, so you've asked us to simplify and explain letters, notices, standards of them, layout, justification, insignificance, importances of what we do and why we do it. You'll notice in a bit I'll show you the website and the courses section, and I've furthermore we are developing that to simplify this for you as well, and you can take that workshop guide, aka course, at your leisure, and it is given as part of the 12 credits promises entry for the annual membership. We're about to move on with the silver layer level. The secondary, bronze was the first, your key competence, which is known as merit level, and then the silver, funny noise just happened then, which is your foundation level, and then the gold, which is the advanced special level. That means something's working on my programming. Something's happened in the chat room. I don't know if that's a new scribe or a donation or something, but I'll get back to that later. All very technical, but thank you for joining today. So that's the layout, left and right, to on the left and from on the right. Private and confidential. I put a N.H.S reference number there for my person on the left. You've got the date of when this was drafted, the 21st of June. And then you've got your notice to agent is notice to principal, notice to principal is notice to agent. Notice how I've spelled principal. I'll get into that later and the reasons why. You are free to spell and draft and, as I say, communicate as you see fit. I am the principal, the principality, P.A.L, the source of the credit, the originator, the prime, principal is correct in my view, and we've had extensive discussions on this and we can continue to do so. There is articles in the forum where I've in splspro.com, in etymological forum that we have, and I've outlined why I use what I do. And it proceeds to say, notice the justification now is all center, not left or right. This is not a letter, do not treat it as such. Wants to be a capital there. This is the first version. It is a notice served under the doctrine of notices. Correspondence is also pursuant to the Data Protection Act 1998/2018 and the General Data Protection Rules 2018. Any failure to respond to this will be met with a complaint against your private company being raised with the Information Commissioner's Office. Failure to comply with G.D.P.R 2018 is considered by the ICO to be a criminal offence. Dear, and that's where the doctor's name was inserted, where the X's are, and the practice manager. Under the aforementioned legislation, we hereby give you clear notice that we require that you do not share any of our private, personal and sensitive data with any third parties without our express written consent. Right, that's our person, personal, personage, personnel. As I say, I am the data controller for my person, the strawman, the legal fiction, the estate, the legal personality, the data self of David. So personal is more than enough to express what we're on about with regards to status, standing and capacity. Any failures to comply with this notice will be met with a complaint being raised by the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO, and considerable compensation being sought from yourselves is set out in the General Data Protection Regulations, not rules, regulations. We require acknowledgement of this notice and your agreement to comply in writing and within 7, and the number 7 in brackets just in case, yes, days of receipt. No ill will, frivolity or vexation intended, but kind regards by David Yarson Jeremita, sole representative, beneficiary and set law for the Mr. David Jason Jeremita Trust Estate. Why not? UCC don't often use it. but in certain things with regards to retention and retainment of rights, assertion of rights, and going into commerce, sometimes it's fun to put them on. No one's ever questioned them. It's never done any damage. You don't have to include them, and they aren't just explicitly relevant in America. So universal gives you a clue there about the jurisdiction of universal codes, commercial codes, universally commercial codes. I'd argue that there's a clue in the title there that they aren't just explicit to America, as well as all of the crown courts across the realm. So you can take that out if you want. 1308, 1341, 3-402, brackets B and 1. All natural rights are retained and reserved, non-assumptive, without recourse, without the UK. And you see there I put autograph by, and then page 1 of 1, copy to file. Where the autograph by line is underlined, draw a line under it. You don't need to put that line, you can remove that. I've used it for emphasis on my notice. I just had by, and then I wrote there in red pen, David, simply all lowercase, David, and that's it. That's gone off to the GP as it is there. So I'll look at the questions that you put in regarding that. I declined to use the online service for now. I'm going to be doing that later. If you read the video description, I've told you I'm going to go through a process. We have until September to get all of this done, and that was designed by brother Kevin, created and authored by Broseph Kevin. So if you just bear with me, don't need to save that. I'm going to get something else up to share for you next. Number 2, proof of the service. When I handed that in, I asked for this. Bear with me while I tell the window capture to now capture. Else, all right, can't do that. Give me a second. I'm going to show you the proof of service that I received from the doctors, because when I gave them that, she told me at the door I just need to post it in the letterbox, and they weren't even wanting to open the door to let them to take this from me. So I said that wouldn't be preferable. I will need to get some proof of service, proof of postage, proof of receipt. All right, so just tell the window capture to get next page up for you. Let's see the proof of famously. Opened it, but it hasn't got the option for me to share it, so going through a little bit of a teething problem here because I have no updates and the layout's changed, but bear with me, I will not disappoint you. I'm learning on the fly here. Learning on the fly. I believe that should now come up, hopefully. So I'm going to go through what that actually is there. A little bit of delay on tube, so let me just confirm that that's coming on. Right, there we go. See, we got the power. On the left hand side, it's got the GP, just a slip from the GP of which they I've got their details on for the practice surgery. They took my identity, my person's name, which is listed there, and I gave them 2 things. I gave them medical records form, which I'll explain in a minute. I gave them the data sharing opt-out, what I've just shown you, that was drafted by brother Kevin and I've read through. and then they put the stamp to the right hand side, which has got the practice details and the date of me sharing that. Okay, so the left hand side is the details of the practice surgery, middle is my person's details, the data, self details, and then underneath that was what items I gave them, medical records form, data sharing opt-out. On the right was their stamp to say they had received that. Okay, so the next thing to share with you is the reply that I got. Okay, that's going to be a moment. Very short and sweet, nothing technical here. I have edited out the details. Right. So here's the reply. Some of you aren't getting a reply of what I have here. Some of you are getting another letter. I already know what you're going to be saying, and I have that prepared for you as well. All right, so at the top was the doctor's relevant details, and I've left on the bare basics. This is a scanned letter of what the practice sent me. As you can see there, short and sweet. Dear Mr. Jeremita, ignored. I don't really mind they ignoring the sign off and what I put it as. They've accepted the fact that the Mr. Jeremita's data, the person, the data self. Thank you for your letter dated. It was a notice, a first mistake. What I read out, this is a notice under the, you know, it is not a letter, but they're not trained legally. They are receptionists and maybe not competent in the art of what we are. So you forgive that for now. Thank you for your letter received the 22nd of June 2021. It's now the 27th of June. Okay, so I got this Friday. Friday was the date of the 25th, so it took them from the 22nd to the 25th. Right, 3 days. Action that. Oh, it's on Zoom mode. Regarding your request that the practice does not share any of your private data, personal and sensitive data with any third parties without your express written consent. This letter is confirmation that we have actioned your request. Yours sincerely, and I've blotted out the details, the privacy, sent on behalf of, and then I've taken out the group practice's name. So for me, the requirement and the instructions went without a hitch and went very smoothly. There was no problems, and it was done within 3 days. There are a couple of little issues of which I've highlighted. I'm not going to be arguing with that right now. Then I go to what some of you are actually getting, which is this one. Bear with me again while I get this on the screen for you. And I will need to get a little drink of apple juice. Let me just check the screen. I'm going to read the title: Dissent from Secondary Use of GP Patient Identifiable Data. So this is what some of you may have already seen this, some of you might not, but for the benefit of those that haven't, that are about to do the communication to the GP or perform the communication to the GP and advise them, inform them, instruct them, compel them, yes, you may end up getting this back. And I've seen this on a couple of the posts in Telegram, and I've had a couple of emails about this, which is why I'm doing this video today. So after sending that first form, that notice, D.P.A and G.D.P.R, They write back saying they're confused and they don't understand what you're saying, and they say if it's to do with the dissent and the opt-out regarding GP patient identifiable data to third parties, they send this form, which I didn't get and I won't need to use. But for the benefit of those that haven't done it, and for what I've just outlined and opted out, and for the benefit of those that are and that are doing it manually in the self and getting proof of service and going through the ways that we do it rather than using .com, N.H.S data opt-out services. I don't trust them. I don't like them. They're impersonal and there's no authority as such with autographs and so forth. So we have a tried and tested way of communicating, noticing, executing documents, executing them as deeds, how to execute deeds correctly. And I'll leave it there, each to their own, which is why I said it's not legal advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm sharing and I'm trying to help. It's simply as what we do. So it says, Dear GP, I'm writing to give notice that I refuse consent for my identifiable information and the identifiable information of those for whom I am responsible, delete as appropriate, to be transferred from your practice systems for any purpose other than my medical care. So on that first notice, if you have any young bloods, you would include them and add them into that and edit that Word document and put down also, because you are the settlor and the principal, you know, the one that has equitable title to them young bloods, sons and daughters. You would include them on that first notice and edit that slightly, okay? And then as well as yourself, your person's self, your data self, however you want to put it, you put down your sons and daughters data cells and identify them with the national insurance, with the N.H.S number and the legal date of birth, not the born day, but the date of birth that the doctors hold, and specify them along with yourself. Please take whatever steps necessary to ensure our confidential personal information is not uploaded and recorded. My dissent by whatever means possible. Oh, is not uploaded and record my dissent by whatever means possible. This includes adding the dissent from secondary use of GP patient identifiable data code, and then it's got read v2 blah 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 blah. That's some kind of code there that's for the office use, not what I've put in there. That's just what somebody sent me. I've seen one of these physically last week of a brother called Simon, is all I'm going to say. He mentioned this in the public Telegram chat, and a brother called Ben sent me this saying this is what you use to opt out. But clearly it isn't what you use, because as I've shown you and the reply and the fast action on that, I didn't have any problems doing it manually and via executing a deed and getting proof of service for that. So it says, I am aware of the implications of this request. Understand it will not affect the care that we receive, and I will notify you should I change my mind. Yours sincerely, signature date. Information to help identify my records. Please complete in block capitals, in brackets, square look, title, surname, family name. So at least they give you the right to have a family name, not just a surname. Title for your person, the 4 names for your person, your address, where the office is, and where it's concerning, postcode, date of birth, and N.H.S number if known. Space for additional patient details overleaf. And this here, what I'm showing you, is from N.H.S Digital. It says the GP practices are required to action this opt-out. See, and then there's a website link there for that. More copies of this letter can be downloaded from medicalconfidential.org/how-to-opt-out. So I would consider that you would call them up and say, where is the confusion? Why have you sent me this out? I've sent you a notice, or attach the original notice to this and fill that out with your person's details. Can't really do much there because they've already formatted it, so you could write that out again. You could copy all of this, write this out on a new document, and then you can tell them via an autograph the date of that. You can put down your relevant person's details, and then you can do what I did on the notice and then separate it out on the bottom, and then you can put your status, standing and capacity separate to your persons. You can attach that initial notice that I showed you at the beginning of the video on with this. We're not legally obliged, we're not legally allowed to give legal advice, so the doctors should know, the GP surgeries should know exactly what they're doing there, what is required of them. Alright, so interesting that some of you are getting that returned to you when you've given initially a copy of that first notice that I showed you at the beginning of the chat. So I don't know how you feel about that and what way you want to go, but this is an official legal document, whereas the first one I showed you that was drafted by Kevin was through the open office document, and there's a Word file, so there's a open text document and a Word file in the public Telegram group. You can access that now by looking at the video details and going through the links and the details, and you will find Telegram. You can SPL's public Telegram chirp. You can go to Facebook, splspro.com. You can also find it on the domain Literature Library and Resource Vault. So if I endeavour to find you that, yes, I will do so. We'll go up to the library resource library. Many clicks, bear with me. Should all be going automatic now. Yeah, I've got some other bits to read you in a minute. There we go. Someone's Ashton Alexis just asked to join SPLs. Yeah, 404 documents found. I'll go through the relevant ones, new ones. May be interested in. Part 7, starting a prosecution in a magistrate's court. You may remember I did a video called Money Claims some weeks ago, and I'm releasing that in the private as content creators and other YouTube thought leaders and mavericks are taking influence and copycatting our information, and I'm limiting what I do in the public now, and I'm releasing more stuff in the private, which is my prerogative. There are magpies of magic and thieves of tradition all over Facebook, YouTube, the internet domains themselves, and I'm giving far too much away, and I should be generating for our private community, splspro.creators.community, that being what I'm on about there. Part 7, so the criminal procedure rules, part 7, starting a prosecution in a magistrate's court, so there's some guidance there to see on the thumbnail, the part 7 direction, and the link is there from the .gov UK community, or justice.gov UK in particular, for the source. Sex Discrimination Act 1975 has been recently uploaded because that's very referenceable for what we need going forward with sovereignty. I'll explain very soon. There's a source link there for that as well that come from legislation.gov UK, all public source, open. Use it for education, non-profit. It's completely legal, lawful, and we need this to help you refer to guide you with where we're going. The Equality Act 2010. All right, so Equality Act 2010, sex discrimination, section 11A. The Equality Act 2010 prohibits sex discrimination. It applies equally to both men and women, and prevents direct and indirect discrimination, harassment and victimization because of a person's gender. Section 11, in relation to the protected characteristics of a sex, a reference to a person who has a particular protected characteristic. So Equality Act 2010. Companies Act 2006, this is to do with execution of documents and signatures, seals, individuals, behalf of companies, authority. This is particular acts and sections to do with when you say it's not signed and it needs to be signed. This is how we're going to back up in the second tier, the merit level, the silver level. It's going to be brought to you on why we do this and what we use to argue validity of a document, and if a document has been executed or a deed has been executed correctly. Moving on, G.D.P.R compliance checklist, a step-by-step guide to maintaining G.D.P.R compliance. Something different, but it's useful for everybody's reference. I need that myself for governance and covenants of compliance with those rules lawfully, legally, and I'm also going to be making a course to help small companies abide by G.D.P.R compliance checklist. Watch out how many other YouTube channels now take these comments from and then start making video content along these lines. There's at least 5 I'm watching that echo what we do, and within hours, days and weeks. And that's when I say magpies of magic and thieves of tradition. Content creators cannot think for themselves, won't work with us, but then take the information and move forward with it. And I'm not going to mention names, but there's a particular couple that are really starting to annoy me. Guide to the General Data Protection Regulation. So this is a guide explains the provisions of the data protection to help organisations comply with requirements. Again, that ties in with the compliance checklist. Yeah, that one there in blue, that's from the ICO. All right, so regulations, and this one is from the government, from the resources of legislation and the Data Protection Act 1998. Okay, European G.D.P.R regulations, UK G.D.P.R, and if you operate in Europe, and also it's applicable to America, it's quite a lot of the realm in itself. All right, so that's interesting to have. Regulation of the European Parliament and of the Council. What's that? That's to do with G.D.P.R, the UK General Data Protection Regs, UK law, which came into effect on the 1st of Jan 21, sets out key principles, basically rights and obligations for processing of data in the UK, except for law enforcement and intelligence agencies. I've got the source there of legislation.gov.uk. That was page 1, the literature library in the resource vault. Bear with me while I load up the next page. Data Protection Act 1998, Section 10, guidance for staff. All right, so if you have a company and somebody serves you, if you're a small company, a big company, any company, somebody serves a Section 10 of the 1998 Data Protection Act, that's how you comply with it. We also serve Section 10. Kevin is the one, again, the living legend that is Kevin, and gave me that couple of paragraphs that we send to companies, like I'm going to send to Julie Leonard at the DVLA for failure to comply with a video that I've done. Some of you may have seen the trust agency correction that I did with regards to, let's go to videos, Indi, DVLA agency relation correction. So you'd look at this video, it's about a 90-minute video that I've done there, where I've gone through the notice that I sent to Julie and the G.D.P.R and data. They've dishonoured that, so I now need to get them to stop processing the data, because they've passed it on to the complaints department, and I'm going to serve them the Section 10, stop processing data until you prove legitimate interest. Moving on, Human Rights Act 1998. You've got the Human Rights, the main articles of the Human Rights Act 1998. All right, with the conventions and provisions there. Reference Guide to Consent for Examination or Treatment, 2nd edition. So that's a guide to the legal framework that health professionals need to take account of in obtaining valid consent to examination, treatment of care. That's a very strong, excellent document given to us by our Telegram chirp and chat with regards to consent for. No treatment can happen until you are informed, duly informed, and actually consent to it. Informed consent in UNESCO's bioethics document itself from the United Nations, all right, UN, and then ESCO, bioethic document, volume number 1. from Sorta, Bilajak, informed consent in bioethics documents. The abstract here, the aim of this paper is to demonstrate through the analysis of UNESCO's bioethics documents with special reference to the Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights and the Bioethics Core Curriculum, the spot and the role of doctrine with regards to informed consent. We also look at other things we've done there with regard to the prudent patient, I believe in the Bolam report that I mentioned some years ago. We've got the essential probate checklist, the last will and testament information, that's taken from the internet and the domain there. I put the links in and the topic with regards to that. We've got an express dedicated topic forum with topics for last will and testament, powers of attorney and so forth, and what you would need to do, and research in itself what probate is. Attorneys at law and powers of attorney, remember they're separate. It doesn't mean that you're appointing somebody when you get powers of attorney. As a lawyer or a solicitor, you are actually managing your estate should you have difficulty being present. So your last will and testament will only come into effect when you are no longer with us on this realm. If you are taken away and abducted, or you're taken ill, if you're not incarcerated, abducted, go lost, lose your mental faculties, become non-compos mentis, and you get taken away, your powers of attorney will come into effect, and your last will and testament will not come into effect. Your last will and testament will only come into effect when you take your mortal breath. So there are step-by-step protections that you need to consider that we help you go through and guide you with. It appears that I haven't uploaded this N.H.S document as of yet. N.H.S, the notice, G.D.P.R. I will do that and make sure everybody in the private's got it. It's in our private exclusive splspro Telegram group, and it's in the public Telegram group, and it's on Facebook. Continue on with reading through some recent documents. American Legal Equity, No Respecter of Persons by Gerald R. Thompson. So that's to do with the states, and as we are primarily Anglo-Britain, and the Sovereign Republic of New Britain to be exact, but we deal with the English UK of GB. You know, we also cater for USA and the European family, and so we are able to help you with regards to inequality within the administration of law, you know, and your state and federal laws, seemingly like our legislation, and this emergency second tier of COVID legislation results in inequality, however you want to say that. So interesting document in itself. And we've got the Blackstone's commentaries from 1796, various ones, the 1800s. I didn't read it out, sorry. The digital version, number 4 of the commentaries on the laws of England, Sir William Blackstone, 1769, of the persons capable of committing crimes. Digital version 3, the commentaries on the laws of England of Sir William Blackstone, 1767 to 1800, of private wrongs. Digital version number 2, the commentaries on the laws of England of Sir William Blackstone, 1766, 1876, rights of things. Name denotes an object, a thing, a noun. That's not man, that's not woman. Alright, so things, name, object, thing, noun, legal equity, legal being the undoing of God's law. It's not your correct, authentic, true, sovereign capacity or authentic being capacity. So a thing, rights of things, just look at that, clue in the title. Digital version 1, the commentaries on the laws of England of Sir William Blackstone, 1876, the rights of persons. Companies are also persons. Persons are persons, a true person, an artificial person, legal person. There's many types of persons, and God is no respecter of persons. Then these ones, the same books, but these are number 4, persons capable of committing crimes. The 13th edition of Private Wrongs. The 1876, the rights of things, and 1876, the rights of persons. These are actually the books scanned themselves of the original books from the library and the Gutenberg project. The first four that I mentioned here are digital versions, which aren't scans of actual books. They're just text pages that are crisp and digital. These latter four that I'm scrolling down to are the actual books themselves scanned. Sir William Blackstone, Volume 1, The Rights of Persons, 4th edition, 1876. So we have Halsbury's Laws collection, we have Black's Laws collection, we have many commentaries and studies of the laws that we can use for our references and articulation. Blackstone's being the commentaries of laws of England. All right, so laws of England. Blackstone is mentioned in America. We've got England with Halsbury's laws, and Black's laws themselves are Crown copyright language for legalese, definitions, interpretations, and etc. Then we move through to Halsbury's laws in various volumes that we've got there through free legal means. Next we move on to what I've been looking to post about news. Alright, there's going to be some rather big news this weekend to given to you all. Very big, in fact, exciting news from our trust point of view. A brother called Jay is looking at some graphic design for our Sovereign Republic of New Brighton, which is the home of peace and prosperity, and the sovereign or sovereign states of being. Sovereign, the international name for sovereignty. And the Gov shall release our original and strong process to move any of you into the private, and to eventually lead you all to claim your unalienable rights and obtain equitable remedy in all areas, and access our energy and mineral rights for thy equitable relief. Our evidence of life, essence and incarnation is your first step on this path. Once you are in our private Genesis, Exodus, trust of truth, you can all stand behind myself, perhaps, if you should so desire. I shall be the lead claimant once my claims and cases presented in the Supreme High Courts of Equity, as I pass through into the private as a private, authentic, sovereign, man, the principle, ideally man, just take man from that. So shall you all, just as Jesus Christ freed the indentured slaves out of Egypt from King Herod's grasp. Now recognize the prophecy has been fulfilled, and that's written in various books, scriptures and passages, 0 forward to 2021 and 0 reverse all the way back 12,000 BC, as far as I can find. Prophecies have been fulfilled, and now it's time for our legacy to begin. The world, the dominion, the realm is in a point of a conscious evolution where we're all questioning authority. The establishments and the institutions have broken our trust. The monarchies, the health departments recently, Matt Hancock, scandals, do as I say, not as I do. They don't follow their own rules. We'll go on forever about all of the scandals and the systems and the courts and the biggest high court criminal review going off at the moment. I'm going to read you some stories about all of that with regards to my channel, but crimes going off and the inequity and inequality that we seem to be seeing. The post office scandal I'm on about, with the biggest review on criminal high court basis there. Some stories that I've got to bring to you. Resignation letter from got a hold of. His name, what was his name? Somebody Pitchfork, I believe he was called. Oh, missing brother, we'll get onto that later. Colin Pitchfork. Sorry. Lord Chief Justice Secretary Robert Buckland back in the news again, challenging the ludicrous decision to release the child killer, Colin Pitchfork. He's a double child murderer, was jailed for life in 1988, but not all his life. Life in Roman speak is 25 years. Colin got a minimum of 30, but it was reduced to 28. Contradiction of terms there in itself. So Lord Chief Justice, yeah, Pitchfork was a big deal on there. Alright, so yeah, man in question, in case you don't know who Colin Pitchfork, the double child murderer, is. Quote from Matthew chapter 18 verse 6, given by a lady called Angel on our public Telegram chat. Those who shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. So I said that they should lock him up and throw away the key, and I asked you for your comments on the various platforms that I manage. And that was a quote from Matthew 18, verse 18, chapter 18, verse 6. Those who shall offend one of these little ones which believeth in me, it were better off for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. That's the King James version of Matthew. So loss of trust, loss of confidence, loss of many things there. Am I reading? So our evidence of life and essence and incarnation, it would be your first step on this path. Once you are in our private Genesis Exodus truth, you can stand behind myself, all right, and look at doing this. You might be wondering, what is that? Well, open this and show you. Those that don't know or may not know, hopefully this will pop up automatically. You have an instrument which is unique and original. You can read about it on the video on Indi Glow. Just let me check that this is actually changing and that pop up on my home page. Here it is. All right, I'm going to go back to that in a minute. We'll look at this here on Indi Glow home page. ELEI proclamation, public to private status, standing and capacity, going from public legal person to private lawful man or woman. Right, so that's on the video there. There's links on the home page. I'll show you where to get it in a moment. So that's what we do. 3 witnesses do that instrument. And I'll explain why this is important for you to consider. Get that when you join our trust and decide to then commission this for yourself through your own free will. That's what instrument I'm talking about, and what we've designed, all lowercase, calling, given name, and lowercase clan name. Syntax on mine is the syntax, English grammatical syntax, not David Windmiller, just syntactic structures to comply with English literature, English language, English syntax. All right, to Oxford and Cambridge, and biblical references is how we speak. We don't use legalese, we don't use David Windmiller's, we don't use anybody's, but plain and simple English. All right, and that is explained on that video that I've just shown you. That's my one that I use for display to give you an idea, which can also be found on the home pages of Indi, what I've just shown you. I've got lost on my own channel then. I'll have a look at the chirp in a minute. All right. Oh, there, Eli proclamation. So you click on that, get to it from Indi. All right, and you'd watch that, or you would go to our homepage. If you're not a scribe, a supporter, you would like to know more, it's written all here in the introduction, and you can click on this hyperlink in the text, which will do this and open up the YouTube video straight for you to watch the proclamation, the evidence of life, essence, incarnation, proclamation, public to private remedy, status, standing and capacity. Brings me on to a little bit of passages I now need to read you before I go on to King Herod the Great. I've explained many times that sovereign citizen is an oxymoronic statement. You are either sovereign, private, authentic, man, woman, or you're a citizen, public, legal, personality, entity, citizen, citizenship. All right, so the people in the 1950s gave Queen Elizabeth II their sovereign status at her coronation. All right, so sovereignty cannot be given to somebody. One cannot give something that one does not possess. So those of you that ask me to prove about sovereignty being a real thing, because the states have a hard time digesting this, Australia does, Canada does, the Commonwealth and the state troopers are apparently being a bit harsh with you, and other thought leaders out there that don't cognise the levels of law and the multifaceted remedies, areas and languages that we have done, can't grasp this, and they're telling you it's wrong. So one, sovereign citizen is an oxymoronic statement. You are sovereign or you are a citizen. There is rules of law, and there is law. There is not a rule of law. You have rules, policy, procedure, public, legislation, common laws, and then you have laws, Abrahamic laws, and law of England and Wales, laws of England and Wales, and the equitable remedy that we find for the legal charges, claims are solved with generally equitable remedy. You can generally find legislation to solve that as well. You cannot mix equity and legislation. Those that seek equity must do equity. You cannot mix the jurisdictions. You can't use legal common law legislation remedy mixed in with equity. The two do not mix. And a rule, a maxim of equity, which is a rule of equity because it's legal equity, it's not so much lawful, but even though it comes under England and Wales as opposed to UK policy, when the rules of common law and those of equity collide, equity shall prevail, which is how you move from one outlaw level to the next. So back to sovereignty, the people gave QE2 their sovereign status at her coronation. One cannot give something that one does not possess. Look at the 10 commercial maxims of law. The truth in commercial law is classified as sovereign. That's the London Templar and Law Society's 10 commercial maxims of law, which have the biblical precepts to accompany them. America, you've got the same. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Commonwealths, foreign English territories, wherever there's a central bank, and the London city courts shipped out their, legalese and court systems, you will find the truth in commercial law is sovereign. You do not write your own maxims, as another YouTube channel has said, how to write your maxims at law. You use the maxims to counter their arguments, and you look at the governing architecture of their legal London Law Society, which are governed by the 10 commercial maxims and biblical precepts that come with them. There are ones out there copying what we're doing and incentivizing thought leaders, magpies of magic, thieves of tradition, and they're getting it wrong because they're running before they can walk. Okay, so I'm honoured that you would be emulating us and this channel and our domain, but you're emulating, your imitation is futile and it's not quite correct. You don't write maxims, you use the maxims, which is the architecture, the governance of their legal law society. And I've explained enough there on that, so I'll move on. Parliaments are liars and thieves. They are not sovereign, as they are wards of the state. A ward, someone in their full title capacity. Queen Elizabeth II, Mr. Matt Hancock, recently in the news and had to resign through his scandals. The status that they hold is not sovereign. Parliament doesn't have any sovereignty. The Queen doesn't have any sovereignty as such, and we claim back what we already gave her. Well, I didn't give it her. It happened in the 1950s. Man wasn't even born then. All right, then we look at, what else did I say? The truth in commercial law is sovereign. See the maxims for that. Search the 10 commercial maxims and biblical precepts of Templar law. The word sovereign has 209 occurrences of it in the Bible. All right, and as I've put down on that evidence of life, essence, incarnation that I showed you for myself, David, it has 3 witnesses to witness that. Now, Matthew chapter 18 verse 16, but if he will not listen, take 1 or 2 others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. Wherever the 2 or more are gathered in my name, I am with them. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Matthew chapter 18 verse 20. John 18:17. Even in your own law it is written that the testimony of 2 men is valid. Are the witnesses credible? Yes, they are. I've had to do this with in mind that there is the 3 major Abrahamic faiths: Christianity, Judaism and Islam, but I've also included the ones that aren't in those 3 major Abrahamic faiths in our universal non-sectarian remedy at law, where we provide this remedy for all houses, all colours, all creeds and all continents. All right, so moving on, I'll tell you why. I'm getting to it. Hold tight. 2 Corinthians 13:1. This is the 3rd time I am coming to you. Every matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. Then we move to Romans 2:11, for there is no respect of persons with God. All right. Romans 2:11 context, but unto them that are contentious and do not obey truth, but obey unrighteousness, indignation and wrath, tribulation and anguish upon every soul of man that doeth evil, of the Jew first, and also of the Gentile, but glory, honour, and peace to every man that worketh good, to the Jew first, and also to the Gentile. For there is no respect of persons with God, for as many have sinned without law shall also perish without law. And as many have sinned in the law shall be judged by the law. For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. For when the Gentiles which have not the law do by nature the things contained in the law, these, having not the law, are a law unto themselves. I draw you to Matthew Hancock. He thinks there's a law unto himself. Look recently. Acts 10:25-37. God is no respecter of person, granter of dominion. God, and the things that I brought to you with regards to stay there. I might need some other documents. I don't think I'll put it in this one. Psalms I'm going for, and John, I believe, that I've recently put out that are in the documents. I'm gonna share with you very, very soon. Luke 2:29. Now, O sovereign Lord, thou dost send thy servant away in peace in fulfilment of thy word. Remember when Jesus spoke the truth to his accusers, he would justify himself by quoting law first. He would quote God's law, and after quoting God's law, he would often quote the accuser's law and use that against them as well. That's exactly what we're doing with the Bible, all right? As well, it is a codified handbook to titles, split titles, rules, law, and procedures in Christian nations of the courts which have a Bible within them. For example, Jesus would say, "Did ye never read in the scriptures?" and then quotes God's law. Matthew 7:14. One is the easy way of pleasing self, which most choose, and which leads to destruction. The other is the narrow way of denying self for Jesus' sake, which leads to life. Matthew 7:13 and 14. One reason why many do not follow the narrow way is that they are deceived by those who teach their own views on how people can find meaning in life. Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Now, if you go to the 10th chapter of St. John, verse 30, there is a passage where Jesus says, "I and the Father are one." There are some people who are not intimate disciples around the time of Jesus, and they were horrified, and they immediately picked up stones to stone him. He says, "Many good works I have shown you from the Father, and for which of these do you stone me?" And they replied, "For good work we stone you not, but for blasphemy, because you being a man make yourself God." And he replied, Jesus that is, "Isn't it written in your law, I have said ye are gods?" He is quoting the 82nd Psalm. Is it not written in your law, I have said ye are gods? If God called them, those to whom he gave his word, gods, and you cannot deny the scriptures, how can you say, I blaspheme, because I said I am a son of God? Well, that's the whole thing that I'm on about in a nutshell. Most of you are getting that, some of you aren't. Bear with me. Jesus, in his exoteric teaching, as recorded in the synoptic gospels, was pretty cagey about this. He didn't come right out and say, I and the Father are one. Instead, he identified himself with the Messiah described in the second part of the prophet Isaiah, the suffering servant who was despised and rejected of men. And this man is the non-political Messiah. In other words, it was convenient to make that identification, even though it wouldn't get him into trouble. But to his elect disciples, as recorded in St. John, he came out and said, before Abraham was, I am. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the living bread that comes down from heaven. I and the Father are one. And he who has seen me has seen the Father. And there can be no mistaking that language, my scribes. And so the Jews found this out, and they decided to put him to death, or Pontius Pilate, I do believe, or had him put to death for blasphemy. This is no cause for any special antagonism to the Jews, I would like to state, no anti-Semiticism. It's fact in the book there of the story. We would do exactly the same thing. It's always been done. It will always be done. It happened to one of the great Sufi mystics in Persia who had the same experience. You know, so what happened? The apostles didn't quite get the point. They were awed by the miracles of Jesus. They worshipped him as people do worship gurus, and as you know, what lengths that can go to if you've been around guru land. And so the Christians said, okay, Jesus of Nazareth was the son right there, nobody else. So we look at these legal systems, the foundations, they are dark and negative. Due process of law is a metaphysical cover phrase for legal concepts such as corporations, which are property rights. Legal persons can be companies, corporations, property rights, metaphysical. These corpses are supernatural entities which do not have a verifiable existence except to the eyes of a particular faith. The Law Society, the Templar faith. Rules of law, or rules and law, but they say that when they say rules of law, they reference these legal concepts. These concepts are just theorems. Jurisprudence is a special branch of the science of transcendental nonsense. A cult reference from the Cabal courts. They're religious temples as such, you know, cults. So the Cabal courts, we would say they are religious temples. We use Abrahamic law, we use United Nations, Declaration of Human Rights, we use the European courts, we use other covenants, we use trust law, we use you can hear that? I think that's the scrap man going past or something. We use some legal rights, such as all humans are afforded the right to be recognised in front of the law as a person. P-U-R-S-E-hyphen-O-N, person, P-E-R-S-O-N. We stay as authentic sovereign wombmans. A leader can only compromise himself so many times before he loses the faith of his flock. Do not follow the wrong shepherd. Jeremiah 50:6. My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their fold, resting place. So I remind you again, legal is the undoing of God's law. Foundations of law as follows. The Judeo-Christian Bible tells a wonderful story. In fact, often referred to as the greatest story ever told. And so it is. You are now about to find out why in the New Testament of the Christian Bible, which is a provocative and most serious challenge that's laid down on the whole of Christianity, since it bears directly on our subject, we will quote it. If Christ not be risen, then our preaching is in vain, and your faith is also in vain, and we are found false witness of God. And if Christ not be raised, your faith is vain, yet ye are yet in your sins. 1 Corinthians 15:14, 15 and 17. In the New Testament there is a warning given to all who would build a house, namely, before you lay the foundation, find out what the foundation itself will rest on, solid rock or sand. The reason is obvious, or to say it another way, you need to stand under the foundation to get a true understanding. The foundations, let's closely examine the original conceptual foundations of the faith and then decide if Christ not be risen. So when we say you've got to understand, understand and overstand, that's what I referenced there, all right, from Corinthians. That's where that comes from. In order to do that, we must go back not 2,000 years to the birth of Christ, but 8 to 12,000 years to the birth of modern man. D.P.A is the new anchor point back to the formation of civilization. It's constantly changing this figure. For when one seeks to establish foundations, one must begin at the beginning. Remember when Jesus spoke the truth to his accusers, and what I said about him justifying and quoting the law. First he would quote God's law. After quoting God's law, he would often quote the accuser's law. Discovery has shown us the bridge between the linguistic codes, codex, code itself, phonics, subtext, that is written in the Bible and what is written in the legal code, that is never crossed while educating or indoctrinating the masses. Over here on England soil, church and state are indeed one. The Queen has handed over governance to the corporate city of London. The corporate city of London, the Queen has to ask permission to go into. So whom is actually running these courts? Is it on behalf of the Queen, or is it on behalf of the Crown of London? Because if the Queen has to go in if the Queen has to ask for permission to go into the corporate city of London, and these courts are saying they're running the courts on behalf of the Queen Elizabeth II, the all caps fictional entity which is not sovereign, because it's a legal status, and a legal status cannot be authentic, true and sovereign, and the Queen has to ask for permission to go into London, and London Crown are running all the courts around the world, then are they the Queen's courts? Think about that. Just have that thing. You know, a man called Andy mentioned about where the courts are seated. When you ask a court, where is this court seated? You know, it's seated within the inner city of London, which is ensconced in London Town. So London Town has a place in it which is called London City. So there are two jurisdictions of London, and the Queen has to ask for permission to go into the corporate city of London, which is where the Templar law and society, Masonic houses, lodges, and the Masonic Sun Temple is. So I'd argue they're not the Queen's courts, and they're not carrying out justice for the Queen, because there's a separate jurisdiction and permissions are required, and all courts around the realm that are civil, English, even equity courts are seeded through that London corporate city, which are disconnected to the Queen, because she has to ask for permission to enter that corporate city. Let that sink in. So it's not justice and it's not law. It's business, and it's with the crown, and it's not the crown on Elizabeth's head. It could be the papacy crown, it could be another crown of London, and it could be the crown on Elizabeth's head. So there's three crowns in play there when we talk about the crown. Don't turn that frown upside down. We'll make a smile of it in a bit. The church and state are indeed one and cannot be separated, for the authority of all law is based on God's authority ceded to man. All right, the vicar there of Christ is now called the Holy Father. It says in the Bible that nobody on this planet or realm should call another father. There is only one Holy Father written in the scriptures, and that is the one above. But yet the pontiffs of the Vaticano City and the House of God are titled the Holy Father. That's a blasphemy straight in itself there. Now, when I say we include all, and I'm going to get to King Herod and some numbers, then I'm going. I'm not going to be on much longer, so hold tight. During a television interview in 1997, the well-known American evangelist Dr. Billy Graham, Search the True Meaning of the Cross by Billy Graham, for those that aren't with us and aren't up to speed. The True Meaning of the Cross, Billy Graham. Billy Graham made a statement. God is calling people out of the world. God is calling people out of the world for his name, wherever they come from. The Muslim world, the Buddhist world, or the Christian world, the Rastafarian world, or others that I haven't mentioned that aren't part of the three major Abrahamic faiths, which is Christianity, Judaism and Islam. Now, when I say a universal non-sectarian remedy for all, this is where I got that idea from. God is calling people out of the world for his name, whether they come from the Muslim world or the Buddhist world or the Christian world or the non-believing world. They are members of the body of Christ because they've been called by God. They may not even know the name of Jesus, but they know in their hearts they need something that they don't have, and they turn to the only light they have, and I think they're saved, and they turn to the only light they have, and I think they're saved, and they're going to be with us in heaven. The strange idea is that a person can be saved without knowing Jesus Christ. That's gaining popularity, and we're pushing that as part of splspro's Christian disclosure. It is known by names such as religious pluralism, universalism, reconciliation, ultimate reconciliation, and the gospel of inclusion. One verse from the Bible that is often used by them to support this idea is Acts 10:34. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, "Of a truth I perceive that God is no respecter of persons. To be a respecter of persons is to practice discrimination, favouring certain people and not others. So they say that according to this verse, as long as a person has some basic concept of God and tries to do good works to please him, God will surely accept him. But what exactly did Peter mean when he said these words? Did he mean to say that God will save all, regardless of their religious beliefs, and without them believing in Christ alone for salvation? No. As we study the passage where these words come from, we will find that all that it means is that God does not exclude anyone on the basis of race, class, culture, social background, or position. Let us turn our Bibles now to the passage in Acts chapter 10, verse 25 to 37. This passage reveals three important truths about the Lord's plan for all men. These truths help us to understand in what sense God is no respecter of persons. Christ welcomes all. This truth is found in verse 35. But in every nation he have feareth him, and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. Peter said this in the house of Cornelius, a Roman centurion, just before preaching the gospel to him. Cornelius was a God-fearing Gentile who had done plenty of good works, but he still needed to hear the gospel in order to be saved. Thus, it is not true that anyone can be saved without knowing Christ at all. What Peter meant when he said that God is no respecter of persons is that God has chosen those who are his people, not from one nation alone, which is Israel, but he has chosen to save people from all nations of the earth. This salvation of people from all nations was actually God's plan right from the beginning. It was revealed from the time that God called Abraham and said to him, "And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed." Genesis 22:18. The future fulfillment of this promise is seen in the heavenly praise will be given to Christ in Revelations 5:9. And they sung a new song, saying, "Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof. For thou wast slain, and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred, tongue, and people and nation." In the Old Testament, we have the example in Genesis 14:18 and 19. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High. And not Holy Father. Most High is the terminology is used often. Holy Father would relate to the man of the papacy in the Vatican City there. And he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth." We see another example in Job. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. Job 1:1. Job and Melchizedek were both outside the nation of Israel, and yet they knew God and were saved by him. Christ brings peace to all is the second bit. I'm not reading it all. You can find this on the .com in the forums. Okay, and Christ must be preached to all. So when we say that Confucius had a saying from ancient Eastern philosophy, all right, do unto others as you want done unto yourself, that was written before the Holy Testament themselves, and I'd argue perhaps the Torah, the Old Testament and the New Testament, but yet the Ten Commandments from Moses coming down Mount Sinai after speaking to the I Am contained some methodology in one of them of the 10, which is do unto others as you want done unto yourself. So that was taken from Confucius, and it wasn't so much the works of. Let me just see if there's anything else I need to go. Yep, I've told you all that's relevant there, so that can be done. Right, Herod the Great. What we're doing now is comparable to what Jesus did when he led the indentured slaves out of Egypt to the lands of milk and honey. All right, what do I mean by that? Egypt, King Herod. Herod the First, also known as Herod the Great, was a Roman pliant king of Judea, referred to as the Herodian kingdom. Although God liberated the Hebrews from slavery in Egypt, slavery is not universally prohibited in the Bible. And also within legal realms, legal slavery is voluntary. When you submit your rights and you go and you give, and equity will not aid a volunteer. Forced, mandatory slavery is illegal and unlawful, and it's a sin. All right. Slavery was permissible in certain situations, so long as slaves were regarded as full members of the community. Look at Genesis 17:12. And they received the same rest periods and holidays as non-slaves. Exodus 23:12, Deuteronomy 5 and 14 to 15 and 12:12, and were treated humanely. Exodus 21:7 and 26. Most importantly, slavery among Hebrews was not intended as a permanent condition, but a voluntary temporary refuge for people suffering what would otherwise be desperate poverty. Think of today's times and how things are set up when I read this. When you buy a male Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, but in the 7th he shall go out a free person without debt. That magic number 7 again, Sleven, 7, heaven. Alright, so the 7th year he shall go out a free person without debt. Exodus 21:2. But hang on a minute, God is no respecter of persons, but yet these Bible scriptures have got person in. Haven't you said, David, that God created man, man created government, government created persons, and legal is the undoing of God's law? And what? My head's baking. I know. See what I say when there's messages from within and there's inequalities, inconsistencies within. Oh yes. Cruelty on the part of the owner resulted in immediate freedom for the slave. So if you was cruel to your slave, they could be freed. That's Exodus 21:16, 27. What? This made male Hebrew slavery more like a kind of long-term labour contract among individuals and less like the kind of permanent exploitation that has characterised slavery in modern times. Female Hebrew slavery was in one sense even more productive. The chief purpose contemplated for buying a female slave was so that she could become the wife of either the buyer or the buyer's son. Exodus 21:8 to 9. As wife, she became the social equal of the slaveholder, and the purchase functioned much like the giving of dowry. Indeed, she is even called a wife by the regulation. Exodus 21:10. Moreover, if the buyer failed to treat the female slave with all the rights due an ordinary wife, he was required to set her free. She shall go out without debt, without payment of money. Exodus 21:11. Yet in another sense, women had far less protection than men. Potentially every unmarried woman faced the possibility of being sold into marriage against her will. Although this made her a wife rather than a slave, would forced marriage be any less objectionable than forced labour? In addition, an obvious loophole is that a girl or woman could be bought as a wife for a male slave rather than for the slave owner or a son, and this resulted in permanent enslavement to the owner. Exodus 21:4. Even when the husband's term of enslavement ended, the woman became permanent slave to an owner who did not become her husband and who owed her none of the protections due a wife. The protection against permanent enslavement also did not apply to foreigners. What? Leviticus 25:44 to 46. Men taken in war were considered plunder and became the perpetual property of their owners. Are we still at war? Asked a recruiter in the house. Women and girls captured in war were apparently the vast majority of captives. Numbers 31:9 to 11, 32 to 35, Deuteronomy 20:11 to 14. Faced the same situation as female slaves of Hebrew origin. Deuteronomy. What's going on here? Let me just check this out. All right. Including permanent enslavement, slaves could also be purchased from surrounding nations. Ecclesiastes 2:7, and nothing protected them against perpetual slavery. The other protections afforded Hebrew slaves did apply to foreigners, but this must have been small comfort to those who faced a lifetime of forced labour, LOBOR, labour. In contrast to spelling, it's an old-fashioned way, or it's inconsistent of Mr. UL. In contrast to slavery in the United States, which generally forbade marriage among slaves, the regulations in Exodus aim to preserve families intact. If he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. Exodus 21:3. Yet often, as we have seen, the actual result of the regulations was forced marriage. Regardless of any protections afforded in the law, slavery was by no means an agreeable way of life. Slaves were, for whatever duration of their enslavement, property. Whatever the regulations in practice, there was I've got so much to say, but I'll carry on. In practice, there was probably little protection against maltreatment, and abuses occurred. As in much of the Bible, God's word in Exodus did not abolish the existing social and economic order, but instructed God's people how to live with justice and compassion in their present circumstances. To our eyes, the results do and should appear very disquieting. In any case, before we become too smug, we should take a look at the working conditions that prevail today among poor people in every corner of the world, including the developed nations of England, America, Australia, Canada, and etc., the foreign territories of the Empire and the Commonwealth. Ceaseless labour for those working 2 or 3 jobs to support families. China, India, I'm not being critical here, but sweat factories, sweatshops, Nike, Apple, things that have been in the news recently that are facts that have been substantiated, where they get a pittance and they collapse and get killed and are locked in and are jumping out of windows to commit suicide, is what I'm referencing here. So they have 2 or 3 jobs to support families. Abuse and arbitrary exercise of power by those in power, and misappropriation of the fruits of labour by illicit business operators, corrupt officials, and politically connected bosses. Millions work today in the UK and America as well, without so much as the regulations provided by the law of Moses. If it was God's will to protect Israel from exploitation, even in slavery, what does God expect followers of Christ to do for those who suffer the same oppression and worse today? The Exodus Hebrew departure from Egypt is the founding myth of the Israelites. It tells a story of Israelite enslavement and departure from Egypt, revelations at a biblical Mount Sinai, and wanderings in the wilderness up to the borders of Canaan. Its message is that the Israelites were delivered from slavery by Yahweh, the I Am, the ones whose name is unspeakable, but yet we give it a name and try to speak it, their God. And therefore, Tetragrammaton is also another name I found in my discovery, which is the Jewish name for God, but yet we can't speak the name. So many contradictions of terms and idolaties, and the Holy Father from the Vatican City. It's just, you see why we have to pull it apart. And therefore they belong to him by covenant. The consensus of modern scholars is that the Bible does not give an accurate account of the origins of the Israelites, who appear to instead to have formed as an entity in the central highlands of Canaan in the late 2nd millennium BCE from the indigenous Canaanite culture. Most modern scholars believe that the story of Exodus has some historical basis, but contains little material that is provable. The narrative of the Exodus is spread over the 4 biblical books of the Torah or Pentateuch, namely Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. There is a widespread agreement that the composition of the Torah took place in the Middle Persian period, 5th century BCE, although some traditions behind it are older, since allusions to the story are made by 8th century BCE prophets such as Amos and Hosea. The biblical Exodus is central in Judaism, with it being recounted daily in Jewish prayers and celebrated in festivals such as the Passover. Early Christians saw the Exodus as a typological prefiguration of resurrection and salvation by Jesus. The narrative has also resonated with non-Jewish groups such as the early American settlers fleeing persecution in Europe and African Americans striving for freedom, and civil rights, biblical and narrative laws. Israel in Egypt. The story of Exodus is told in the books of Exodus, Leviticus and Deuteronomy, Numbers, the last 4 of the 5 books of the Bible, also called the Torah or Pentateuch. In the first book of the Pentateuch, the book of Genesis, the Israelites had come to live in Egypt and the land of Goshen during a famine due to the fact that an Israelite, Joseph, had become a high official in the court of the Pharaoh. Exodus begins with the death of Joseph and the ascension of a new Pharaoh who did not know Joseph. Exodus 1:8. The Pharaoh becomes concerned by the number and strength of Israelites in Egypt and enslaves them, commanding them to build at 2 supply or store cities called Pithom and Ramesses. I heard a funny noise again. I don't think you did, but new scribe, or something's happened there. Let me check the screenage. Live chat. The Pharaoh also orders the slaughter at birth of all male Hebrew children. One Hebrew child, however, is rescued by being placed in a basket on the Nile. He is found and adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, who names him Moses. Moses eventually kills an Egyptian he sees beating a Hebrew slave and is forced to flee Midian, marrying a daughter of the Midianite priest Jethro. The old Pharaoh dies, a new one ascends to the throne. Moses in Midian goes to Mount Horeb, where Yahweh appears in a burning bush and commands him to go to Egypt to free the Hebrew slaves and bring them to the promised land in Canaan. I'm on a sacred contract. I'm trying to free the indentured slaves, and I want to lead you all out of this indentured slavery and take you to the promised land of the sovereign republic of New Britain, the home of peace and prosperity, man, woman, sovereign, authentic flesh and blood. And this is the big news that I've got for you. In addition to what we've already given you and we've already presented, I now have furthermore supportive and public common legislative laws, as well as universal independent fundamental laws, as well as biblical Abrahamic laws. More laws than you can care to wish for. We have got. It is moving forward. We are having a purple flag designed with a golden lion on it to put on our paperwork and to assign to the sovereign republic of New Britain, where there will be, how did Claire put it? I forget what she put there. How she said it now, the United Sovereign States of Being, the Unified Sovereign States of Being, us, the estate, the state of mind at the temples, sovereign, being, having a fly, like a fly has landed on me a couple of times during this video. I have got land here, the Creator making Adam from the land, the mother, Gaia, earth, and look how much of this you've got to read. Let me just scroll down there. Look how far I've gone into this for you to reference. That's one stops there. And then we've got stuff on about Anabaptism, the Quakers and the Levellers. Where I got the idea for a republic was Anabaptism emerged during the Protestant Reformation. It is claimed that the movement began in Germany in 1521, and they had been inspired by the teachings of Martin Luther and a publication of, that's not Martin Luther King, Martin Luther and Martin Luther King, 2 different entities, all right, and a publication of the Bible in German, now available to read, now able to read the Bible in their own language. They began to question the teachings of the Catholic Church. And they believe quite a lot. So look at the Anabaptists, look at Anabaptism, look at the Quakers, and look at the Levellers. And America, you have a Democrat side and you have a Republic side, where your church and state also are very much separate, where for us over here we are joined. So appreciate the position of the Governor David, splspro.com, and our ways and our remedies, and the fact that our evidence of life, essence and incarnation caters for all, and all can be included. How I go about that, an amazing amount of work and conceptualization, study, and furthermore, as in my maverick way of doing things, has come forward. So for the thieves of tradition and the magpies of magic. I'm throwing you crumbs to catch, but you can't keep up and you can't manage the data that we manage here. Number Johnny 5, need more data. Data protection, data management, data being sold, data self, man, David and his data self, Mr. David and David the principal. Exactly, it's all tying in. There is a thread here. I'm shutting down. We're getting to the end. I'm proving to you that you can trust in us. We are strong, we are articulate, we are diligent, and we are now going to lead the way. So the Anabaptists argued that Jesus taught that man should act in a non-violent way. We agree with that. We're non-violent. We do peace and love. We have respect for all. They quoted Jesus as saying, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you, those that steal my work and plagiarise it, all of them, the establishments, the Matt Wancocks, all of them. Peace and love. I don't hate you. I pity the fool. I pity the fool, in the words of B.A. Baracus. All right. Love your enemy and pray for those who indeed persecute you. Luke 6:27. Blessed are the peacemakers, big nose. For they shall be called the sons of God. All right. Jesus was a son of God. You are all the sons and daughters of God. You are the peacemakers. The United Nations and foreign war policies are the peacekeepers, and they keep peace by bombing the bejesus out of countries with bombs and weapons of mass destruction and claiming wars and rockets and missiles. We are the peacemakers. The truth is sovereign. We gave the Queen sovereignty. I've got lots of things to prove to you that we are number one. We're not sovereign citizens. All right, you are number one. We are all in the image of, I and my Father are one, the universal Father. All families are included in this. Okay, so to shut down, I hope that shuts up any self-doubt that you may have, and all colours, creeds, races, sects, countries, continents and nations are invited to come and chat with us. And if you join our trust and you do what we inform you is possible to do, then you can have your own republic in your own nation, and you can be forming your own trust, which is linked to our master trust, and we can get this to, across the lands. So I continue on. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Matthew 5:9. Do not use force against an evil man. The rule of law is governed by the force of law. The force of law is governed by the ministerial code. The ministerial code is governed by international remits itself, but it's called the police force and the force of law. We would never use force. We don't think force is honourable at all. Man should never be forced to do anything. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Matthew 5:39. Let me just check that. Do not use force against an evil man. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. That's what I've put it. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Thank you, 1,000 thanks. Thank you, 1,000 thanks. It's hard that. I recently said to somebody the other day, it takes a bigger man to walk away from a fight. Brother Brian from Tactical Sovereignty, trying to goad me. That's what I'm talking to Brian from Tactical Sovereignty. And I know you watch my videos and you are one of those unconscionable ones. Hello, Brian from Tactical Sovereignty, whose group I've left, whose post I've removed, whose jibes I will not lower myself into. I say to you, 1,000 thanks, 1,000 thanks. Matthew 5:39. Do not resist evil with evil. Luke 6:37. He who lives by the sword will perish by the sword. Matthew 26:52. So let's see how much work I'll put into this post for you, look, and data of Anabaptisms in England, where they come from, the belief, the history, the heritage, books of references, articulate points of reference. The source is here, I believe. Yeah, all right. And then I move on again. Do Baptist, spring from Anabaptist seed, baptized. You're all becoming baptized again in a different way in your maturity. You're reaching the age of majority. You're learning to deal with things, see things, look at your data self, baptism, questioning all of the houses of God. All right, look how much data we've got in here. That's the end of that post. And we've got Anabaptism from Neo-Latin, Anabaptista from the Greek. I cannot pronounce that Greek word there, but Greek's in the house. And another bit there. German, Taufe, earlier as wider Taufe, is a Christian movement which so we get the idea where I'm coming from, and we go like this. More breakdown of it. It's an interesting area. It's inspired me. All right, very much so. This is all the data I've got for you to compare to here. Origins, theories, polygenesis, history. All right, a good job screenshotting that. Come and see us. We do it big. We don't do things small. We like data. And I'm getting to the end. I'm going to skim through the comments. I'm in the office tomorrow. I'll be getting in touch with you tomorrow regarding contact, telegram, emails, notifications. The ones that try to goad me, such as Brian from Tactical Sovereignty. I've not got time for you. Can't be entertaining you. That's that. All right. Where would you go if you're a member of SPLs? You'd go here. Am I in the chat still? With that. I do believe I'm still in the chat. Let me just do that. If you're interested in that data and you're a supporter of the private domain, I'll put the link in for you now. If you want to reference that, you can only get that if you're with us. So there you go. There's no harm in me doing that. And I've got another forum, which is, I'll share that with you now. If you're with us, where this is coming from. The Disciples of Christ, I think it's called. Bear with me. The disciples are Christ, are witnesses born and birth. So I'm going to just skim through to get to the bit where I am needing to be. Romans 2:11, for there is no respect of persons with God. Romans 2:11. So what I've read out to you in some of this document today is found here. All right. Read all that out. Acts, God is no respecter of persons, and put during a television interview, the well-known American evangelist Dr. Billy Graham. You know, this is all here, what I've read out to you, that I wasn't going to read before. Christ welcomes all, when I said all are included, and when I got the idea and inspiration from the universal non-sectarian remedy for all, where man claims all the world's resources, common heritage for ourselves again, gets equitable relief remedy within the mineral and energy reserves of the realm. This is the post there where it's part of this book here as well for you. All right, put that in the chat. That can go. Right, let me go to home. Greg's done some tweaks. It's looking rather nice. Thank you to G.D.P.R for the little cosmetic tweaks you've put in. Please click to become a supporter. Check the links in the video. Come and visit us. I've now started to write my private self as David -colon David -JAE -SONNE Jeremita. So I've recently changed it again. Continuous evolution of position. So that's me who's speaking now, and the governor of this domain and trust, and my legal person is JASON. Or Jason. So I've got I'm commonly known as this, and I operate privately as this calling and clan estate name, but you'll see Jason is spelt slightly different. My person's name is not the same as that, so there is a clear distinction between man David and person David. All right, so that's why I've done that. I'm not trying to go above anybody. I have two statuses, a public status, which is not me, and I have a private status, as we're talking about data and data opt-out and consent and everything like that. So you understand, understand and overstand. All right, that's where you download your last will and testament for free that we give you as part of your 12 credits and promises, shekels that you give us. Okay, that's housed there. Cummings, Boris, about Matt Hancock, totally hopeless. These are some of the stories I've put up recently. What have I got to show you here? our children's social care system, 30-year-old tower of Jenga, everything's crumbling, and it's going, you know, to the dogs, literally. So the reasons for self-governance, the reasons for doing what we're doing, the world's at a time, a crossroads of, you know, thought, consciousness, questions, truth, integrity, honour, and vote of no confidence. No, I wouldn't say a vote of no confidence. I'd say a complete loss of trust and a mick take. I'm going to swear a little bit. You might want to turn down the volume if there's any young bloods in the room. Pause the video. Complete piss take. All right, it's a shower of shit is what it is. Embezzlement, lining your friends' pockets, scandal after scandal, courts, politics, religion, monarchy and banking. That's why we're getting out, and we're going to protect our unborn lineage from what the Mr. Chancellor of the Exchequer is doing, Mr. Rishi Sunak, and how he's going to put in thousands of millions of hundreds of thousands of millions of young souls into debt, you know, via this registration, Regis. You look at the Sovereign Masters Guild from the library, you select library, we've got resource library. This is the first place you would go to get frequented with our terminology. You download this bundle here, the 2021, 10 megabytes. It's in there. Civil judicial template for justice, excuse me. And you've got the CQV quasi trust, principle of trust law, master servant. So your three documents there. Then we've got UK officer agent interaction, and then we got a document myself and Greg did called shadow contracts. Me and Greg did. Quite a few of us did those latter two. I mostly did those and put them first three together. So Regis, registration, Regis. Look at that word in itself, and tration, as Andy pointed out on the open public chat on Telegram the other night. Tration, to give away something which is most precious. So Regis, Queen and Monarchy. Tration, give away something most precious. Registration, Bumshanker. We go to library again, and you've got your resource library table view. Right, so if you don't want to look at it one by one and search and use the tags there, you'd come here and you can see green for new files, the dates, size, the downloads, and you can scroll through page by page. And then it's if you're looking for something or you're just curious, we'll then go for check something. Physician's warranty of vaccine safety. That's particularly interesting for you to consider as well. I'm just checking for that document, what Kevin did. Data. Ministerial codes there. That's interesting for you to look at. Does the Vatican own thy soul? Repentance and sin, and the potter and the carpenter. I'm getting excellent feedback about that. There are videos on Indi Glow entitled that. I suggest you check them out, or you actually, if you're in and you join us and you support, then you look at these three as well. Get some more inner over understanding about what I'm going on about. Egyptian Book of Thoth, Egyptian Tarot, Babylonian Talmud, ecclesiastical deed poll. Not so much a fan of this because this is to do with Templar law, canons and Vatican and certain things. We've found other ways to do the same thing via the evidence of life, essence, incarnation. But if you deem an ecclesiastical deed poll to be the way, then we give you that to consider, and that's why it says review only. The Proclamation of Sovereignty Part 2, Vico Actus version 1, part of the merit level silver enhanced course at your workshop guideline. We're going on now. All right, more references for Duns, Theological Bible, Ecclesiastical Dictionary, A Proclamation of Sovereignty Explained version 5. I'm going to remove that. It's had nearly 200 downloads, but this one replaces it. The more later the publication release upload date, the more relevant it will be for you. It appears it isn't. I am surprised about that. All right. Habeas Corpus Act 1679. kind of relevant, but with what we've got, we're not really reliant upon these kind of, like I say, when we use legislation and we use it to our advantage, then you cannot mix equity with common laws, common legislative laws. These are common laws. The common law is that it comes out of Westminster, which is mandated upon your person by default, presumption and assumption. Then you've got the Ten Commandments, which are biblical common laws, which are the social governances of community. And then we have England and Wales laws, you have to separate. You sovereigns think you don't have to follow the law. Well, which law might you actually be on about there? COVID-19 conditional acceptance. Oh, I've got something else to show you that I need to show you. Actually, get this up. 1 second. Important. Forgotten about. I believe too many things on. Oh. Okay, back to here. There is no legislation for exemption at the moment for COVID exemption, COVID virus vaccine. I'll just this up for you. What David's done, I was on a telephone call with the nurses, had a telephone call with the doctor, and I've asked, due to my medical conditions, and my family, should I say, not mine, would it be sensible to accept the text message invitations that I'm getting through the doctors and the surgeries at the moment, or should I sit back and wait for further information? So here we go. They don't have the legislation in place for exemptions. They're only giving out vaccine passports for those that have had this experimental vaccine, which is approved but not licensed. So on the 22nd of June, I wrote, I require the following. Monday the 10th of May at 9:35 a.m. this year, 2021, I received a call from doctor after speaking to the practice's nurse on Friday the 7th of May at 11:13 a.m. Since then, I have called the 119 telephone service and spoken to some agents who took my calls, who have directed myself back to this practice and said I need to request a formal letter from doctor and the practice outlining the below. As there is no current legislation regarding exemption proofs for not being medically suitable to accept or have the COVID-19 vaccine administered, there is only legislation for a COVID-19 passport once one has received the vaccine. The details are as thus. On Monday the 10th of May, 9:35 a.m. via a telephone call, doctor informed me that he was unable in his professional capacity as a doctor to assure myself that accepting the offer of a COVID-19 vaccine was a safe and reasonable action to commit at this time, due to my concerns about my medical and biological conditions. There is a history of angina and varicose veins in my family's genealogy. I have conditionally accepted there is an offer made to myself via the Health Department and the N.H.S Trust of England, and then via text messages, I'm not going to talk about Matt Hancock, inviting me to volunteer for a vaccination administered by your practice and surgery. The offer has been conditionally accepted as doctor, I'm not going to say his name, it's just his X is there, inferred that I would need to obtain further validated information regarding the safety and benefits of accepting this offer. I am aware of the possible varied and low risk side effects, albeit, one of them is death. That's not in here, but I've put I am aware of the possible varied and low risk side effects of taking this non-licensed and experimental injection of a substance/product known as COVID-19 vaccination. The call was recorded and a transcript can be made if available if necessary. I require proof from the practice and surgery of the above direction as to ensure my fundamental human rights to work and roam and to travel freely and unhindered are upheld, and to prove that I am at this time not a suitable candidate for this COVID-19 vaccination. Thank you, and God bless you all. Autographed by. So when I asked the surgery for proof of the for a certificate, when I asked 119, where's my exemption passport, they said there isn't one. 119 said to me, David, there is no legislation for exempt members of the community. There is only a passport to greenlight anybody for travel and work and social aspects of life once they've had the vaccination. I said, well, that's not very fair, is it? They've only done half a job as far as I can see. Of course, there's going to be members of the society and community that aren't eligible to have the vaccine for medical reasons, and it just logic would dictate that when you're going the government writing legislation for COVID vaccine and passports there, we should actually have, you know, one for the exempt. But that thought didn't occur. It's not in legislation, so I'm looking for the scribes on Indi to talk with me about this. I'm going to download this and set this for the premiere for tomorrow, because I'm live on the .com, a private cast with Rosie Kelvin later, Kelvinius Maximus the First. So I'll be interested in the comments on the feed here, and forgive me if I don't go through all your comments. I'm going to premiere this on Indi after I've downloaded it from here, and we will have a premiere and discuss this, and I'll review it with you and talk with you further about that. But if you check, there is no legislation. I've had it from the horse's mouth. So for me to circumnavigate and find a workaround, and I'll put it on the practice. And whatever they give me, it's going to take 10 weeks for them to action this from the 22nd of the 6th. So when I showed you the proof of service earlier, and I said one was for the data issue and non-sharing, and one was for the medical requirement, that what I showed you earlier, that might pop up on the screen. I might need to change this capture. 1 minute. Yeah, I will. One second. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. Don't rush me, scribes. I'm learning to ride a bike again once the systems have had an update. Might be that, yep. And I said I'd given the doctors 2 items, and one was for data non-compliance and one was for proof of. That's what that little imagery receipt is there for. So I've got 10 weeks from the date of the 22nd of June to wait for my GP to give me the COVID exemption. All right. I think marvellous. Now it happens fast. 10 weeks. When you're waiting for me, Kevin, answer, email, telegram, etc. When it gets you in, I would hope so, generally the 2.5 months. We're not that far behind, so we're doing quite well to say we're on a shoestring. We desperately need donations and help and support, benefactors, looking to get some land to actually establish the Sovereign Republic of New Britain and the allied sovereign states of being. So help us out. We need help, and we'd like you to consider supporting us. Before I go to the chat room and quickly skim that, and I do need the little boys room as well, I'd like to look at and say, you go to Indi Glow. Oh, SPL's Pro, so can I do this? I believe I can without breaking the system. That's the backup channel we're on now for those that are watching on Indi on the replay. Here's the Indi homepage. You go to community. If you're not interested in videos and playlists and you want to get updates on what I'm doing, that's what I've shared on Indi. We are live an hour ago. This video we're on now. That's your bit of scandal sleaze by Matt Hancock. Hey, beeping. That's the letter hours ago of resignation from Matt Wanksock. And that's the second chat we should have been having with Rice TV. Brother Chris, he's cancelled that, so we will get there. Roundtable discussion with David and Kelvin. GB News. Freedom protest in London the other day. These by chance, will it let me? They were quite funny to find. Put the politicians on minimum wage, close down their business, deny them healthcare, isolate them, and watch how fast things change. We got 20 odd likes on that. Interesting iconography. Saving lives, shagging wives. I hate that, man. I know they're all as bad as each other. And there'll be another one put in that's just as bad, but so, some are just entirely unpalatable and just to look at wind you up, whereas others are more tolerable. What's happened here? Is this real or what? I always wondered about this, man. This was taken from Facebook, was posted. Let's do it properly so I can show you. Show you what's on. Shut down. And bearing in mind, I'm thinking of the replay as well. So when you click on the home page, the blue F, you go here, it takes you directly into splspro.com. This is our public Facebook trust. I've corrected that. The Crown owns your name. That was an interesting thing to correct, but I'm moving on. No time for that. It's dragged on long enough, but not dragged on. I need a wee, basically, is what I'm thinking. My mind's another place. Post from Brother Kelvin there. Matt Hancock resigns to spend more time with someone else's family. Oh, someone's, yeah, that's what we put in SPLs as well. Sister Karen, we promote her channel, we let her promote some stuff she does. Happy to have you, Karen, thank you for that. Well, I'm not healing your hangover, but you turn the water into wine. Excellent, Kevin. Have a look at some of the we've got going on. Going around a long time. That's interesting. Don't know about that. Just slow. That's brilliant. My latest video from last night. Policeman getting stickered. Good picture for me and Kevin there. Did well. Thank you, Chris, for that. Oh, where did we see it? Buster Rhymes, Awakening Sheep 2. Was he, yeah? I see now. We're just doing this, just scrolling through. There we go. So Aaron Sexton is requesting help in community help. Has anybody seen this man, Steve McRae, Bincham, also known as Steve McRae? If anybody knows his whereabouts, please get in touch, as one is rather concerned about his mental well-being. Yeah, I just enlarged it. That's all I did. 1 second. Sorry for the eye strain. I was quite shocked to see this, more shocked than you might actually give credit. So if any of my friends up north come across this man, please get in contact with me. Last seen in the Glasgow area. He could be anywhere with this state of mind. All my Facebook friends, completion, please share this. It doesn't read, that does say what it says. Could be anywhere with his state of mind. If all my Facebook friends, completion, please share this. Where it came from, and I was like, oh, okay then. So Stephen's not looking too well, and Aaron's got some in community help. So I clicked to that. I thought we'll do exactly what it says on tin. I went to that group there. That shocked me more than you might give it credit for. He put the post there, so anybody on the replay or in the chat room, Aaron Sexton, Facebook's looking for him. I'm going to keep the rest of them. I'm going to be reserved in light of what that is and how bad he looks. You know, people have mentioned things about £5,000 and trusts, and Simon, aka Dawson, Docker Dawson, aka Simon Dawson, aka Docker Dawson, claimed to have access to the TDA accounts from Brother Stephen. So if he has got that, I would say that Simon Dawson is the perfect man to invest his his funds, of which he's got through Stephen getting his access to the TDA, Treasury Direct, etc. And he could put as much money as he wants into it, unless that isn't quite the case. I don't know. Yeah, look at bribes. Go to live chat. I'll give you a shout out and I'll say thank you. I'm very, very much needing the toilet. I'll share something else. We'll capture. Yeah, we can do. These on SPLs and then I can look at comments. Bit of luck. Oh, it won't. Alright then, 1 minute. Yeah. It won't. It will only take the active window. The active window. 1 second then. I want to see your comments and then. Maybe I do this. Need to get something in there, don't I? Might do that. Might do that one. Sure. Yeah, goodbye message. Okay. Comments and we're getting off. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your company. I hope you've been enlightened. I hope you've been entertained. I hope I haven't offended you. Said it with love and light. I mean what I say. And I am a hermeticist, primarily. We use awful ways out, as is the way, you know. We told you why we do that, because it's based on that book there. We recognise the way out. We put full armour on, don't we, Jay? You're in the chat. I do believe I saw your name earlier. Right then. Kathy, Tony. Volume really low for me. Okay, maybe it is. I'll make a note of that. I'll go a bit closer to the mic after the presentation. I'll set my settings out, but it's telling me they're good. In the yellow. Oh, it's turned down a bit. You're right there. Minus 11 decibels. I've seen that earlier. Alright, thanks, Barn. Get it turned up. Gansders. Merlin's assistant Amanda. Great screen name. That is one of the best yet. All my fave girls on chat. There's such a ladies man. Anders keeps great company from Lisa. Hello sister. Lisa, hello to the family for me. Hope all's well. There you are. Please concentrate on David, girl. I love you. You are the best. Such humour. You put without UK, i.e. offshore, but am I right to say Great Britain is not a country? Without UK, Great Britain is not a country. Great Britain, the United Kingdom of Great Britain is not a country. It's a UK. UK is a paper-based format. Great Britain is a landmass. You'll have to wait another time. We'll get into that. What a great gift from Brother David. Thank you, Gansters. I got that form and signed it by autograph. All rights reserved in red. I completed the form in red in lowercase. I only have red pens in my car now. That'll do, Tony. That'll ding dang do. A man that knows, a man that can and knows what to do. Bosh. David must have been Hippocrates as a distant relative. Thank you, Lisa. No, I have got Greek, Italian, Irish, English lineage, and I have been to Hippocrates' house and villa and aware. I am aware where he was, where he lived, and etc. So Yes, I do admire that man. Not totally everything, but let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. When we was herbalists once upon a time ago. Share this video, please. Yeah, give it a thumbs up. Well said, Gansters. Nothing hypocritic about David. I'm no hypocrite. That's right. Doctor of Ethics with or without tooth. Yes, I come to you as I am today. So I put it in now and again. Mostly I put it in, but still need it doing. I'm not using anything that isn't mine to get it done. It's hundreds of pounds. I'll wait and get it done properly. And it's not the biggest of things going off at the minute, considering, but still toothless. Pirate wannabe. Such a treasure trove of valuable information. We are fortunate to have this to our avail from the unselfish generosity of David and Kevin. Bosh, that's right, that's what we do. The sacred contract. And we give not to receive, but to make you stronger so you can roll with us. Sit Eisen. Tom Middleton, why aren't you blue? I don't think I can make you blue, can I? Add moderator. Welcome to the Blue Man group, John. I am the universe. We are masters of the universe. Fulcrum is the most important part of this. Alaskan teen boys did some crimes, were charged, tried, but not by legal court, but by native justice tribal court. They were sentenced to survive on a remote, uninhabited island for a lengthy time. Now then, that's proper law. I like that. Thanks for sharing. Lisa, say hello to James for me and the fam, like I say, and blessings be. Hope all is well. Great little bit of information to share. Proper law. Do unto others, you want done unto yourself. Okay, let's make you blue. And cock cupboard kissing is a complete sham. Can't quite work it out. Wait, he and she went into a place with a camera for a smooch. He's probably into. Oh yeah. Oh, I wonder if he gets a fine. He should definitely get a fine. He should definitely get an enforced fine. Boris will be giving him a pat on the back because Boris has, done the same. They're all in the same club. Infidelity. Tony, ciao, much love. Full armour is there. I love it when you say that. Proper bow. Nice one. Thank you. Bless up. We're ending now. I'm going to the little boy's room, and this will be replayed on Indi Glow for all those that aren't here now that will be there later. Bless up. Thank you. City soon. Don't forget to check out the links in the video for support, where we live, public Telegram chat,